Happy summer, Lehigh Carbon Community College. Welcome to Suggestions for Summer Success Special Batch number 1. Hey, here reminded me that we really should do a session on some test-taking tips, since some of you guys have final exams coming up or midterm exams as well. So, my name is Michael. I'm a learning specialist here at the college. I'm housed in Educational Support Services, and I can help students with a whole bunch of things, one of which is strategies to be more effective with tests, right? So here's our quick agenda. We're going to explore strategies for true-false questions, matching questions, computational questions, aka mathematical questions, right? Multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions, short answer questions, and essay questions. Now, on our YouTube site, we're going to chapter all these so you can jump ahead to the specific ones. Some of these will show up on more tests than others, but we want to give you some general strategies for all these types of tests, as these are the common types of test questions you're going to see. Okay, true-false question tips. Read each statement carefully. Underline the keywords, but make sure you circle absolute words like always, all, everyone. Circle qualifying words like some, few, often. Right? Now, statements with absolute words are usually false. All Lehigh Carbon Community Colleges, all Lehigh Carbon Community College students love this video series. That's probably false because it's all of you. I wish it was true, but it's probably not, right? Statements containing qualifying words are usually true. Many Lehigh Carbon Community College students like this video series. That is probably true. We like to think it is, right? So watch those words. They're going to give you triggers along those lines. There can be exceptions to this, just so you know. Watch out for those double negatives. For example, driving over the speed limit is not illegal. Driving over the speed limit is not illegal. Therefore, you got to rephrase that a little bit. Driving over the speed limit is legal. Is that true or false? That's false, right? Sometimes you have to process those double negatives, so take some time to do that. Please note, a statement is only true if all parts of it are true. So, for instance, Michael Spinks is a learning specialist at Harrisburg Area Community College. That is false, because while Michael Spinks is a learning specialist, he is not one at Harrisburg Area Community College. All right? So you got to make sure that's true. So watch those things. They're very designed to trick you sometimes. But also, another important true or false question here, just try to be objective when you answer. Don't think about how you want the world to be, the ideal. Think about facts and things that are very clear and distinct. Okay. Next up, matching questions. Now, these don't happen a lot of time on tests, but I've seen them show up every once in a while in some computer courses, so we want to spend some time with this. So make sure you read the directions carefully. Are you looking for one match or multiple matches? Most of the time it's just one match, but every once in a while it might be multiple matches. Right. So you want to read all the answers first so you know what's available. You want to cross off the answers as you use them so you don't reuse them. That's if there's only one match. If there's multiple matches, you might want to put little clicks, little marks by that you used it, because chances are everything's going to be used at least once, right? Use a pencil. Don't recommend pens for these types of things if you're doing it face to face. Now, if you're using a computer, don't be afraid to reset to start over, right? Now, remember, the thing about these multiple matching questions, right? The thing about these matching questions, they assess your ability to recognize, recall, and connect information in terms. That's really what they do. So nuances really matter. Many questions will feel like they overlap, so you got to be careful here. Sometimes you have to make sure you use the process of elimination on these matching ones so you get to use them all. Right? So, for instance, right, use to search the internet. What matches best with that? Computer, browser, Google Chrome. Well, it depends what the other options are, right? So where you want to match those. So you want to make the best match possible, not the fastest. Students often very rush through these things, thinking they're going to be easy, and they're not. So you want to make sure you take your time and get the best match. Computational question tips, aka math questions, right? Make sure you have the appropriate calculator if you're allowed to use it on the test, and it works. Get comfortable with it. Make sure you know how it works. You should be comfortable with it at this point in the semester before the test. Every once in a while, I'll meet a student who's like buys a new calculator right before their test. You don't want to do that stuff, right? Now, sometimes you're not allowed a formula sheet. Sometimes you have to memorize that. But once that test starts, right, you write down those formulas that you're required to memorize. Just write them down real quick on the test itself or on a sheet of paper if you're allowed to use scrap paper, right? Now, when you're looking at a specific problem, right, write down the variables in the formula and what they represent, right? Highlight and circle important information in the problems. Define the key variables in the problems, right? And start plugging in what you know. Try to show your work every step, right? Okay, because one of the things about that is your faculty members want to give you credit for these things, right? So if you can show what you're working at, they can see your processes. Now, this is also useful because they can see where you're making mistakes and what your errors might be in thinking. But be mindful of negative signs, order of operations, fractions, and things commonly people forget or get confused about. Right. Now, double check your work if you have extra time, including everything you plugged in your calculator, because occasionally mathematically we screw some things up. But really, one of the things I want to say is, like, when you get to some of the problems, make sure you use your number sense, right, to check your work. And what I mean by this is that, does this number make sense within the context of the question? So, for example, the question is for you to calculate the miles per gallon of a car. And if you get, and I got 285 miles per gallon. That sounds awesome, but that doesn't match my number sense, right? And when I went back, when you look at it, I was like, 28.5 miles per gallon. So I use your number sense to kind of get a sense of that. Does that seem right? Multiple choice questions. Now, this is where a lot of people live for standardized tests in college. So these are some of the bigger tips, okay? So make sure you read the question. Students are very often rushing and they kind of skip over the question and dive directly in the answers. But read the question. Then you want to reread it, underline key words and phrases, circle absolute words, qualifying words. Think about what that's really asking you. And I also encourage students to kind of rephrase those in your own words. What is this question really asking you? Then what you want to do, you want to cover up the answers, right? Cover the choices and brainstorm your answers from memory. Try to cover up and say, okay, what do I think the answer is before you look at the options. Then when you look at the options, right, look at every single one. Read every single answer. Okay? Look for absolute words in the answers, right? And keep in mind, look for the option that is fully true. Which one works all of that? Because some of these things about when it comes to multiple choice questions, you're looking for the one that's Goldilocks. Not too big, not too long, right? Just right. The one that kind of has just the right of information. Just the right of information. Again, it's Goldilocks. Right. Now, when you're kind of stuck, it's okay, I don't know exactly what it is, you use PO, process of elimination, right? Because if you don't know what you want to do, make an educated guess from what's left, right? And there's a better chance of it's going from 1 to 4 to 1 to 3 to 1 and 2, have 50-50 shot of guessing it, right? You want to take an educated guess what's out of what's left, right? Now, for all the following except questions, you want to justify each response, and you eliminate answers that are true till you find the one that doesn't fit. So which of these things does not belong? All right, you got to try to eliminate the ones who, again, do not rush this. Read every option that you have. Read every possible answer, because sometimes they're going to intentionally distract you. And use the stop strategy as needed. Okay, fill in the blank questions. These are somewhat common in college classes, but we want to read each question carefully. Multiple blanks can signify one or more word is needed, but not always the case. Now, the length of the blank can help you determine if it's a short or long answer, but don't assume that, right? Sometimes we see a big line or a short line. We think, oh, it's going to be a short one. Yeah, it doesn't really necessarily the case. It can give you a clue, but don't assume that. Always check yourself, right? Now, also look for grammar clues. Occasionally these exist, like an article has an A, or if an article "and" is in the sentence, right? The answer has to start with a vowel. These things can show up on occasion too. It can be a little clue to help give you the right answer, right? But the answers need to make the sentence grammatically correct. So one of the things I tell students to do, write it in, then reread it after your answer. Does that make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, you might want to kind of like rethink it. Okay. Now, if you don't know the exact term, you're like, I totally forgot that. Write down a descriptive answer. right, to show that you understand it. It's something about this. It's something related to this. It's related to that. You might get extra credit for it, partial credit for this, right? You might get some partial credit for this because you're kind of putting something together in there. So don't leave it blank. You know, really give yourself some partial credit. You know, give yourself a chance to earn some partial credit on it too. Short answer tips. Okay, so this is when you have a short answer, things like that. Before you begin, like read the question, write down some facts you know, right? You don't have to start writing right away. Just some notes on the side that kind of remind you of some facts. So create a rough outline then. Think about what you want to say in an organized manner. I always tell students, think about very short paragraphs for this, right? Plan so you have ample time to answer all the questions that you need to. Sometimes students take short answers and turn them into long answers, and they don't have enough time to finish all the short answers. Got to be careful with that. All right? Now, write as if the reader has no real knowledge of the topic. Be thorough and clear. Now, students sometimes say, well, my professor knows this stuff, right? That's not the point of the test. You know, your professor does know the answer to this, right? The point of the test is, do you know the answer to this? Right? And that's what you're proving on these short answers. I know this stuff. Here it is. Here's what I'm writing about it. So think about the reader as they don't know much about this topic. So be thorough and clear. Right? If you don't know anything about the topic, just start writing. Sometimes you know more than you thought. And again, you want to try to get that partial credit that you possibly could get for it, right? Use proper grammar and full sentences, right? Proofread for error, especially big stuff along those lines. And just make sure everything kind of sounds logical and is well supported in your ideas. Move smoothly, okay? Essay question tips. Now, one of the things that happens on these tests is very often professors will say, write an essay. And they actually mean a paragraph. And sometimes they'll say, write a paragraph, and they actually mean an essay. So you just read the question carefully or just ask. If it's an essay, that means introduction, thesis, body paragraph, or paragraphs, and a conclusion. Right? Now, if you have an essay, don't start at the beginning, right? Skip a few lines and start with the thesis. You can add sentences later, right? But you want to start the thesis statement as you're working. And to create your thesis statement, what you want to do is rephrase the question into a statement. Okay, so you take the question, you rephrase it a little bit, and make it into a statement that works for your paper. All right, now, if it's a paragraph does mean topic sentence, support, and a wrap-up sentence, right? They're kind of tight little things. Again, you want to create your topic sentence, you want to rephrase the question into a statement. Now, you want to take the question, rephrase it a little bit, and put it into a statement. Now, look for keywords in the question to help you establish your organizational approach. Compare, contrast, highlight, define, argue, right? Classify. Those are all different keywords that help say, okay, this is how I have to write this thing. Pay attention to those keywords. All right. Now, all those tips that we mentioned for the short answers, they also apply here too. All right. All the things about grammar, making sure they flow right, making sure that you just write to get things going. All right. They all exist right there. All right, thanks for joining us. For suggestions for summer success, reach out for us if there's anything we can do to support you while you're here at Lehigh Carbine Community College, and enjoy the rest of your summer.